I completely disagree with you.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of House of Ways and Means. Today we're going to talk a little bit about what 2020 did to marriages the world over. So what is it that we saw in 2020 when it comes to the state of marriage and what, I guess, the pandemic caused related to marriages?
The study that we looked into was actually from BBC.com, and it shared that there's been an increase in divorce inquiries, and 122% increase in divorce inquiries in the UK, and then over 34% increase in divorces just across the board. So Sweden, UK, and then they said that there were similar findings in China. And I know from reading different articles that I can't quite pinpoint right now, that there have been similar studies done in the US where the divorce rates are pretty similar to those responses. So,
I mean, what do you think, without having additional information about why any particular marriage would fail, I mean, what is your hypothesis about what would happen specifically during a pandemic situation like we've been in globally that would lead to an increase in divorces?
I think the reality is that when you are quarantined, you have to spend a lengthy time in the same space with the same number of people. And what you're finding is that people are realizing or learning more about one another, or things that they may have been able to avoid with physical space or distance is unavoidable when you're in a quarantine status. And so this is kind of across the board, and I think that's why we're seeing it in other countries as well as in the US, that families are realizing that maybe the things that we thought that we liked about each other, or the way that we related to one another, it worked before because we kind of had our moving parts in the relationship. But when you're not going outside the home as much, and you're not as busy outside the home, and you're looking inward into the relationship or into just your physical space, which is your home, you start to see things that you may not have seen before, or things that you ignored. It becomes enlarged.
Well, I mean, it doesn't really make sense to me that a situation like that where you're just finding out more about each other, or you're just seeing things that you perhaps didn't see before, it doesn't make sense that would happen if you're married. I can see if you're maybe dating and you live together, then yeah, you're probably learning more about each other. But if you're married, you probably already know a lot of these things. You just, were able to avoid them, or they were at a manageable level because you went to work every day, or
because
you were
of physical distance.
Yeah, but
well, that's what I said. I mean, essentially, I see what you're saying, in that you feel like if you are married, that there should not be new things that you're just learning about your partner. I can agree to that, but the reality is that sometimes people get married and they really don't know who the other person is. Sometimes, and I hate to have to say this and be this person, but I think a lot of people and a lot of us, women and men, we put on a front about who we are because of who we would like people to perceive us to be, and we can't keep up that facade over time. It's okay for us to keep up with it again with that physical space throughout the day, but without that physical space and that emotional turmoil that you may be internalizing because of the quarantine period, you're one, possibly changing, or two, who you are is, being shown, is being truly revealed. And you can't keep up the hype, you can't keep up the front, and something that was once tolerated because there was physical space to allow for you to acclimate to the changes or to accommodate the changes, that physical space is no longer provided. And I believe that that's why a lot of people are now divorcing.
There's a couple things happening. I mean, because I think we see, even though there's an increase in divorce inquiries, well, we'll see what happens over time once things kind of go back to normal, once we get vaccinated, if those divorces actually reach completion. We'll see, you know, because we've seen similar spikes with suicides. I mean, I think that the pandemic just provides a really intense environment that people are not used to, they never expected to be in, as far as being caged in, maybe, you know, cabin fever happening, where you're just kind of just stuck face to face, and then you're adding in, you know, financial difficulties for a lot of families, and we know that's a major stressor when it comes to marriage. You got people, you know, stuck in the house with their kids, having to tutor and teach their kids in things that they didn't know that well themselves. And you've got, you know, just a perfect storm for people to just kind of feel like they are just on the wrong path and falling apart. I mean, I think that if people are able to really persevere, and hopefully we're getting close to the end of this. Not that things are just going to go back to normal, but at least I think people will be more comfortable kind of going out more, returning back to normal. I think some of the restrictions will be lifted and across the nation, especially once we get higher concentration of the vaccine, hopefully. So, I mean, I think that people are making really, or looking at making really permanent decisions just because they're in a headspace that they might not be otherwise. So this is just, I think, a really intense environment. So hopefully...
Let me ask you a question about that. You're saying that people are in a headspace and they're making intense decisions. So are you saying that...
Well, they're making irrational decisions.
Oh, so you're saying irrational.
They can't see... Yeah, I mean, like someone commits suicide because they're like, this is never going to end. They're just like stuck. They're so their mind can't see beyond like what is happening right now in their face, because it's just, you know.
So you think people that are filing for divorce at the rates that they're filing for divorce is because it's an irrational decision made on both their parts or on one party's part to initiate a divorce?
Yeah, I think so.
I disagree.
If it's something that's leading to a huge spike, I mean, what changed?
I'm not saying that. Let me be clear. I do agree with you in that what's happening with COVID is leading, like I mentioned it, and that was the first thing I said. One of the first things I said, that there's a lot of emotional turmoil that's being experienced, and people can't manage it in their marriages, and it's causing people to change or to shift the way that they make decisions. So I agree with that. But what I would not agree with, I cannot agree with, is that because we're in COVID and because there are these emotional spikes and people are making decisions, that everyone's decisions are irrational.
I'm saying they're making decisions irrationally,
or
because that's not the way they would normally make a decision.
Okay, and then you also then said that the people that are making divorces or that are choosing to divorce, that it's an irrational decision. And I disagree with that.
No, they're making a decision irrationally.
I do not believe, it doesn't matter, tomato, it doesn't matter how you twist the words. I still believe, I disagree rather, that people are making a decision irrationally to divorce. I disagree. And that's, I mean, because I know of people who actually, I know a few people that are going through divorces. And I don't think, knowing who they are, I wouldn't say that the decision is irrational. What I would say is that it may have been something that was going on prior to COVID, and again, because of COVID, it's put you in that like intense pressure pot type situation, and people are then making a choice faster because they are exposed to this compressed experience. Whoa. And so they make a decision, and I feel that the decision that they're making is probably a decision that they have already been considering all along in some way or some form. It's not something that's just coming out of the blue like, oh well, it's just COVID and I don't like this that you're doing. It started in February or March and I just can't stand it anymore, so I'm gonna get a divorce. I don't think that COVID is like now is the reason why people are now initially considering divorce.
I didn't say that.
I didn't say that you said that. I'm just saying that I don't think that COVID is the reason why people are making decisions irrationally.
Okay, well, you make a decision irrationally when you veer away from your normal decision-making process. That's irrationally making a decision.
I don't.
Your normal decision process is your normal decision process. If you make a decision differently than you normally would make a decision due to your environmental factors, then you're irrationally deciding something.
I see where you're going with that definition. I don't like how you kind of wording it there, but
I don't disagree that it's like people know that they don't like something about somebody.
Right.
They're already aware.
Right.
That was my whole thing.
Right.
You saying that people who are married are somehow still able to keep up a facade. I don't think that's possible when you're married.
What? You know how many people date and they pretend or come off and be this one person, and then you can ask someone questions and you're like, oh no, I'm not this way, or no, I don't like that.
Yeah,
tell me there aren't still things
married.
about it doesn't matter whether you're married or not, whether you may be intentionally doing it or not. I feel like there are still some things I'm learning about you, and there are still some things that you're learning about me. We've been married for some time.
That's on the fringe. You're not finding major things about people that you don't like.
I feel like I found out something major about you,
years.
and I've been married to you for several years.
What, just now?
Not today, but what I'm saying is
How long after we were married was this?
I found out something about you maybe right before we got married. And then right before we got married, it was something that came up. And I asked you a question about it, and you told me no. And then and then it came up again later on in our marriage later on. And I'm like, oh, is this something that you are? Is this something that you like? Is this, like, how do you feel about it? And we've had conversations about it. And your response to me was that you're still kind of trying to figure out.
That's different from keeping up a facade.
How is it different? Okay, yes, it's different than keeping up a facade. But what I'm saying is that there are people that have a facade, and there are people who may not genuinely know themselves. There are a lot of people that enter into marriages and they don't fully know themselves. They don't fully know what it is that they're getting into. A lot of people aren't prepared for marriage.
Oh, that's still something totally different.
That is something totally different, but it still affects the marriage.
Yeah, we're not talking about that.
We are. We're talking about it affects the marriage to the point where you decide to get divorced.
Intentionally hiding something.
Okay, and I'm saying that those people exist.
They exist, but they're on the fringe. They're like, what percentage of married couples is that? Not a lot.
I'm not saying it's half, but I'm comfortable saying that 25% of marriages and relationships, people are holding a facade.
They may be trying to, but the other person knows.
I mean, what can you say to that? But I think, and you guys can let us know your thoughts on how you feel about COVID. Do you feel like it's truly affecting marriages or not? Do you feel like these same marriages that when people are getting divorced are marriages where people would have, gotten a divorce anyway? Or do you really think that, COVID became a pressure pot to these people's marriages, and it has allowed them to make decisions faster because they have more exposure to what is helping them make a decision, support the decision for divorce?
Most people are going to reconcile. That's my hypothesis. I mean, and a lot of, people may think it's a little bit parental, the way that some states say, you have to be separated for X amount of time or whatever, but I think it lowers the incidence of people making mistakes. And when you see a huge spike like that, people are making decisions that they don't necessarily mean because of what's happening. So I think most of these people ultimately reconcile once they can kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Okay.
So what are you gonna do? You get divorced, and then what?
Well, you said they shouldn't get divorced.
People think it's just like, man, we're divorced. This is the great day of my life. Like, there's a lot of couples who are like that, but
it's not. It doesn't lead to the number of people who are filing for divorce or looking into getting divorced. Half of these people are gonna be miserable. 90% of them are gonna be miserable.
I think and you think it's okay for people to be miserable in a divorce? In a marriage that they're unhappy in? Wouldn't they reconcile or not? These people, again,
that's not what I'm saying.
Okay, but you're saying that people are going to reconcile because they're going to see this light at the end of the tunnel. You're saying most.
When I say light at the end of the tunnel, I mean the light at the end of the tunnel, COVID, the pandemic.
Okay.
They're going to start to get back to their normal lives, and they're going to really realize, I was tripping. It's not that bad.
It's not that bad.
We've been married for, we can make it through this.
Okay. All right. Well, let us know your thoughts. Let us know how you're feeling about that, and we'll be more than happy to entertain them, because I would love to hear other people's thoughts on this. Black marriages or just marriages in general. Let us know your thoughts. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up and to subscribe to our channel for more of our juicy content. Thanks for joining us. Bye.